Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is CDUB Studio bringing you another video. Diving into best of one standard with an enchantment deck, a three-color deck, so white, green, and red. Primary objective of this deck is to overwhelm the opponent with creatures that grow in size with things like Showdown and rune cards, and being able to pump up our creatures and swing in for heavy damage is pretty much the main of this game, is to just try to get as many creatures out as possible, uh, and have them just keep growing, because the what we're playing is we can reduce the casting costs of a lot of our deck with certain cards that are in the deck. So go over the cards it's a 60 card deck. Go over the cards that I have in the deck. Commune with spirits. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can reveal an enchantment or land card from them and put it in your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. 2 Snakeskin Veils. Put +1/+1 counter on creature you control. It gains hexproof until end of turn. Basically preventing late game one of our creatures from dying that's being targeted, or being able to block or attack in, and being able to hold this up so that our creature survives and theirs dies. Is a pretty good card to have. Reign of Truth is target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each artifact and or enchantment you control. And it does that 2 times, and then it exiles on the 3rd time, and we can return it transformed, and it becomes an enchanted creature, human noble, and it gets +1/+1 for each artifact or enchantment we control. Then we have Rune of Sustenance. It's basically when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and whatever creature you attach it to gets lifelink. So being able to gain life is pretty amazing, and being able to draw a card is really great. And then we have 1 copy of the Sejiri Shelter, being able to gain protection from a color that we choose, or being able to come in as a white plains if we need to. Spirited Companion, being able to pay 2 and maybe even get that down to 1, and when we play it, it enters the battlefield and we draw a card. And then we have Rune of Speed. When it enters the battlefield, we draw a card, and the creature gets haste and +1/+0 as long as it's equipped. Kami is a spirit. It's got trample. Whenever we cast an enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on the creature, and at the beginning of each end step, if an enchantment was put in your graveyard from this battlefield this turn, we can return Kami from the graveyard to our hand to be able to play it again. So great for putting rune cards on, and then still being able to get it back to our hand. And then Rune of Might enters the battlefield, we draw a card, and as long as we control the creature, it gets +1/+1 and trample. And then we have Runeforge Champion, who allows us to go and fetch the Rune of Speed, or the Rune of Sustenance, or the Rune of Might, and then being able to pay 1 rather than pay the mana cost of rune spells that we cast. And it can be 1 of any color, and it's not tied to a a plains or a mountain or a forest. And then we have Touch the Spirit Realm, and when it enters the battlefield, we can exile up to target artifact or creature until it leaves the battlefield, or we can channel it for 2 mana, and we can discard it, and we can exile target artifact or creature and return it to the battlefield under the owner's control at the beginning of the next step. So we could flash this in and bounce one of our own creatures so that it spell doesn't affect it, or we could do that to essentially any token that they put into the battlefield, so we could remove it that way. for 2 mana instead of paying for 3. And then Katilda comes into play. Flying lifelink for 3 mana, protection from vampires, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of permanents that we control that are spirits and or enchantments. And then if it leaves the battlefield, we can cast it as a legendary enchantment, and it has flying and lifelink, protection from vampires, and gets +X+X, the number of spirits and or enchantments that we control. And then if it were to leave the battlefield, it would be exiled instead. So really good for being an equipment card if she does die. And then we have Hallowed Haunting. And if we control 7 or more enchantments, creatures you control gain flying and vigilance. And then whenever we create or cast a enchantment spell, we create a white spirit cleric creature token with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of spirits we control. And then Showdown, we can exile the top 4 cards of our library, helping us make sure that we're hitting our land drops and we're able to get additional enchantments into our hand and be able to play them. And then for 2 and 3 for the enchantment saga, we get whenever you cast a spell this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature that we control. And then we also, sorry, I forgot, we also have Weaver of Harmony. We have 2 copies of that. Other enchantment creatures we control get +1/+1. And then for 1 mana, 1 green forest, we can copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. You may choose new targets for this copy. So we can do things like double the Touch of the Spirit Realm, so we can exile 2 things instead of 1. Or we could do +1/+1 until end of turn for each artifact or enchantment we control. We could do that 2 times. Or we could draw 2 cards instead of 1. Or we could create a additional spirit token. Or we could put an additional +1/+1 counters. Or we could go exile the additional top 4 cards of our library. So there's lots of choices that we have for this deck when it comes to the Weaver of Harmony. And then we have the Naturalist, who has lifelink, and enchantment spells we cast cost 1 less to cast. So another way to reduce the casting costs of the runes and the enchantment saga, and then the Hallowed Haunting as well. And then in our mana pool, we have Cave the Frost Dragon as a 3/4 for 5 mana, who can be a flying 3/4 dragon. We have 1 copy of the legendary land, and for 3 we can discard it and do its channel effect to deal 4 damage to a target attacking or blocking creature. We have another legendary land. We can pay 2 to channel that, and we can discard it, and we can destroy target artifact or enchantment or non-basic land that an opponent controls. And then we have a 1 copy of Lair of the Hydra. Also can be for 1 green forest, and then we can pay X. We can turn it into an XX creature that's still land. And be able to attack in with this. And then we've got a forest, a plains, and then 4 of the dual-sided red and green land, and then 4 of the dual-sided plains and mountains. And then we have 1 copy of the split land, the Sundown Pass, and then 4 copies of the plains and forests, and then 3 copies of the Overgrown Farmland. I would like to have had more Showdown Pass and Overgrown Farmlands in the deck. I just don't have the wild cards to spare for that. But this is pretty much the deck. There are 22 lands in this deck. The reason why there's not 24 is because a lot of the spells that we are casting are 2 mana, and anything above that, we have ways to reduce the casting cost for a lot of the other higher value cards in the deck, such as Naturalist being able to reduce enchantment spells by 1, and the Runeforge Champion being able to reduce the rune card casting costs down to 1. So really not needing a full 24 lands to be able to play this deck. And then we have ways to draw cards in this deck to be able to make sure that we're hitting land drops with the rune cards and the enchantment companion, as well as commune with the spirits. So lots of ways to make sure that we are drawing cards that we need to get to make sure that we can continue to pump our creatures and be able to effectively build up our dominance on the board. So that's the deck, guys. It was a lot of fun making. Now let's jump into the actual gameplay and show you how it works. Alright, this looks good. We'll keep. Start with farmland, so it's just going to come into play tapped. Hopefully we'll get the third and fourth land that we need. I think we'll play Naturalist on our next turn first. Or maybe not. Maybe we'll play Kami. We can play Naturalist. Back in for 3. Figure we can play Showdown next turn. That's the reason why I set it on red. If we would have had it on green, we could have played Weaver or Rune. Play this one on green. Down to 9. And that's game. Alright. We'll take it. Alright, this looks good. We'll keep. We'll play green. And then we'll play white. Play Kami first. Okay. Playing on green. This way here we have Snakeskin Veil up. Basically try to kill one of our creatures. We play that as a land. A Weaver, put a +1 on Kami. We'll swing in for 3. I think we'll do this to kill that. Okay. No attacks, we'll just sit back. No blocks. And for 2, end our turn. Nice. No blocks. Want to leave the Snakeskin Veil up. Like that. The counter on that. If he doesn't have anything. 16, swing in. Got him. Alright. He did not see that one coming. That worked out beautifully. I guess we can keep. I mean, there's only 2 lands, but we have Commune with Spirits. And we have the Kami and Rune. Play that on green. The Commune. I think we take the land. Kami. A Rune. Is it lifelink? Swing in for 2. The Runeforge Champion out. Let's search our library. I think we'll get Rune of Speed. Play that on the Runeforge Champion. Swing in for 7. Down to 10. We can take 8. Not a problem. Put that on the Runeforge. No attacks. Wow, Journey to Nowhere. Cool. Swing in for 2. Down to 8. Interesting. Deal 4 damage to that. Swing in for both of these. Their turn. We could have really used just one red mana. That would be huge. Swing in with all those. Down to 2. Hopefully no board wipe. Wow. Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna swing in with everything. Only block 3. Doesn't matter. Alright, we got him. Alright, we'll keep. Get Spirited Companion out. There we go, there's a green land we need. We'll play Runeforge Champion. 5-3, we'll go grab Rune of Might. And then for 1. We'll say no attacks. the Rune Swarm. And he doesn't want to stick around for that.